Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys a little bit of a different video today. We're finally at that time of year where Bleacher Report puts out their yearly article for like one new trade idea for every NBA team. And I wanted to go over this because I think some of the trades are actually pretty good. Some of the trades also are very bad. Especially the two that they have for the Pacers. I guess the one trade isn't too terrible, but it's just not a trade that I could see the Pacers doing. So I want to go over it. The Atlanta Hawks are up first. Obviously, the first trade is Trae Young for Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans. These trades are going in alphabetical order of team names. So the Atlanta Hawks are number 1. And like I said, it's Trae Young for Brandon Ingram. The thing about this is this is a trade that I don't think really helps either team. And the reason I say that is because if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, you're getting Trae Young, who is a ball-dominant guard, who really can't do a fucking thing if he doesn't have the ball in his hands like 24/7, 365. He would be going to the New Orleans Pelicans and basically trying to facilitate an offense and be more of a facilitating three-point shooter rather than a guy who's supposed to take over the offense. And Trae Young's efficiency is really not that good for him to, I think, take on a role like that and just make the New Orleans Pelicans better, especially with how bad he is on defense. I really just think, like, from a talent standpoint, this doesn't change much for the Pelicans. Yeah, do the Pelicans need a point guard? Yes. Do they need, like, a playmaking point guard? Yes. The thing is, though, they have CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum has been able to do that, but you have a backcourt of two ball-dominant guards. You know what I'm saying? Whereas if it was like Trae Young was, or like if they had someone maybe like Alex Caruso, right, or somebody like that they could go after who would facilitate the offense and not look to score a shit ton of points, it would actually be more beneficial for the Pelicans to trade Brandon Ingram from like a point guard and a 3-and-D guy rather than just Trae Young. I just don't think this moves the needle very much for the Pelicans, especially when, you know, Brandon Ingram's a more efficient scorer than Trae Young is. I just feel like this doesn't move the needle much for the Pelicans. Like I said, especially with how bad Trae Young is on defense. I understand. Like the thing is, the whole reason this trade exists is because the Pelicans can't get Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson to work together to, the duo just hasn't worked. And it's because Brandon Ingram simply just gets so many shots, and you would be bringing in a guy who arguably gets more shots and is less efficient. So, I understand the need at point guard for the Pelicans, but at the same time, I just think Trae Young is not the answer to that. As for the Atlanta Hawks, yeah, you bring in Brandon Ingram, but the same thing is, like, I still don't think it moves the needle a whole hell of a lot for you. Yeah, Brandon Ingram's 26. He's got an all-star nod, if I'm correct. So Brandon Ingram, good player, but just like Trae Young going to the Pelicans, I don't think Brandon Ingram going to the Hawks really changes a whole hell of a lot for them. They still have DeAndre Hunter, who's a contract they're trying to get off of. They're trying to get off of Clint Capella. If they could get off of Bojan Bogdanovic's contract, they would like to. So yeah, it might be a step in the right direction as far as rebuilding goes, but it's just, even at 26, I just think to myself, okay, so you got like 4 years to turn it around before, you know, you have to start considering shopping Brandon Ingram to another team. And even by then, it's like in the next 2 years, even if you trade for some younger guys, you know, how well they play immediately when they come in is really going to be dependable on what happens with Brandon Ingram in 2 years. So, I don't know. This is a trade that is like, I get why it exists because it fills a need for each team at a position, but I don't think it changes a whole hell of a lot for both teams. You know, if Trae Young was better at playing off ball and actually made an effort to get open off ball, this would maybe be a different conversation. You know, at that point, I think Trae Young to the Pelicans would be great because you could run a bit of an off-ball, on-ball action between him and CJ McCollum, but because Trae Young has never fucking done that, I don't have any faith in it. You know, the guy needs 26 shots to shoot, you know, a decent high 40s percentage from the field and to shoot 40% from 3 or 38% from 3. And if you go to New Orleans, he might not be getting that many shot attempts. And if he's not getting that many shot attempts, right, or maybe he will, either way, the efficiency, the defense, and the fit simply just don't make sense to me. So that's the first trade. Second trade is for the Boston Celtics. This is Jaden Springer and the number 30 overall pick to the Chicago Bulls for Torrey Craig, who has a player option that he's likely going to decline. So I don't understand the purpose of this trade, simply because the Celtics could just sign Torrey Craig, unless they don't have the cap space and want to trade for him so that they don't have to sign him and he could just pick up his player option once he gets to Boston. But if I were the Boston Celtics, I really don't fully understand this trade. I understand the trade from the Bulls' perspective, but I don't understand it from the Celtics' perspective because they don't really need Torrey Craig. I think they're a good enough team with or without him. So that's trade number 2. The Brooklyn Nets. This is a very questionable trade, or a trade that I don't really fully understand. That's hold on, let me say this correctly. Mikal Bridges and Dennis Schroeder to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Darius Garland. I'm just going to call it what it is, dude. Mikal Bridges and Dennis Schroeder are not going to want to go to Cleveland, especially if they're getting rid of Darius Garland and potentially shopping Donovan Mitchell. This doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't. You know, at this point, right, Darius Garland, it would make more sense for the Cavaliers to keep Darius Garland rather than try to trade for Mikal Bridges and Dennis Schroeder. They're a team that, even if they don't bring back Donovan Mitchell, and even if they do bring back I just simply don't understand why you're trading Darius Garland. Like, he had, a bit of a down year this year, but Darius Garland is still a great point guard. And if you're the, I think if you're the New York or the Brooklyn Nets, right? I think if you're the Nets in this trade, you're going to want more than probably Darius Garland if you're giving up Bridges and Schroeder. You know what I'm saying? This is a team that wanted 4 first-round picks for this dude, and I guess this Bleacher Report writer thinks that they're just going to give up Bridges for just Darius Garland. That's not going to happen. There's not a cold chance in hell that I think that happens. I would honestly think that the Cleveland Cavaliers would maybe need to include a first-round pick or 2 first-round picks if they want the Nets to move off of Bridges. And that's not because he's worth that, because I don't think Bridges is worth what they're asking, but if you want to get the Nets to move off of him, you're going to have to include 2 first-round picks with that as well, at least to get them on the phone and talking about it, and I don't think the Cavaliers are going to do that. So, especially if we don't know what's going on with Donovan Mitchell. I just think this trade just simply doesn't make sense for either team. Next is the Charlotte Hornets. This trade is another one to me that doesn't make sense. The trade is Seth Curry, the number 42 overall pick, and a 2026 second-round pick to the Lakers for Jalen Hood-Schifino. I don't understand why either team would do this trade, simply because Jalen Hood-Schifino is very good, but if you're the Charlotte Hornets, you can just sign a point guard in free agency or draft a point guard. You already have LaMelo Ball. You have James Bouknight, who you just refuse to fucking play. And I just don't like Seth Curry. If you can keep him on your roster, I think he's worth keeping because he shoots the 3 very well. They got rid of Terry Rozier. They got rid of PJ Washington. They got rid of Gordon Hayward. Yeah, I can understand maybe you want to get something for Seth Curry before you get nothing for him. But at the same token, it's not like it's hard to find a point guard anymore in the NBA. I would think, I don't know. To me, it seems like trading for a guy like Dennis Schroeder or Schroeder in this aspect makes a lot more sense for Charlotte than it did for the Cavaliers. Just saying. Especially if it's going to be a bench point guard. But that's just my opinion. I don't think this trade's that great. I also don't think the Lakers want to trade Jalen Hood-Schifino. They're a team that's trying to get younger, not older, and Seth Curry is, I think, 33. I just don't see the Lakers getting off of Jalen Hood-Schifino for Seth Curry. I just don't. Next is the Chicago Bulls. This is a really weird trade as well. The trade is Nikola Vucevic and Alex Caruso to the Golden State Warriors for Andrew Wiggins, the number 52 overall pick in the draft, and a 2026 first-round pick that is top 4 protected. Andrew Wiggins played like ass. I understand the Chicago Bulls are playing like ass, but this trade I feel like comes with the assumption that the Chicago Bulls are rebuilding, and they made it very apparent at the trade deadline that they're not. Also, the idea that DeMar DeRozan came out and said that he would like to go back to Chicago. just to me, this trade doesn't make sense unless the Chicago Bulls are looking to sell, and I don't get that vibe from the Chicago Bulls, especially after the season Kobe White had. You know, they played a whole lot better in the second half of the season, and you know, once they let Kobe White start, Kobe White became very good. So it just, I don't understand. I understand trying to get rid of Alex Caruso for like a first-round pick. That's why I think the 2026 first-rounder is in there. But I do think Nikola Vucevic is a significantly better player than Andrew Wiggins, and I think if you're the Bulls, you could trade Vucevic someplace else and get yourself some younger talent if you do consider doing that rebuild. I just think they can do a whole hell of a lot better than Andrew Wiggins and a first-round pick and some really shitty late second-rounder for Vucevic and Caruso. Caruso's a guy that, yeah, he can get you one first-round pick guaranteed. To the right team, he could probably get you 2 first-round picks just by himself. And then Vucevic is a guy that, like, I think you could trade to the right team. And, like, maybe, I know Orlando traded Vucevic to the Bulls, but Vucevic is a guy that you could trade to Orlando and maybe get yourself a Markelle Fultz and something else, you know, or a Cole Anthony plus stuff, or, you know, like get yourself a Jonathan Isaac maybe out of that or something, you know, like, and obviously that's not going to happen, but I think you get the direction I'm going in. Andrew Wiggins has not been the same since, like, over a year ago, going into last season. Something happened with Andrew Wiggins for a personal reason. I don't know what happened, but this dude, for whatever reason, just hasn't been the same baller after the Golden State Warriors gave him that ridiculous contract extension. So, and then also, if you're the Bulls, do you really want to be locked into Andrew Wiggins' bullshit contract? Probably not. So, yeah, if I'm the Bulls, this is a trade I'm saying no on. And if you're the Warriors, I get it. It's a salary dump. You get Alex Caruso and Nikola Vucevic, but, you know, and it seems like they're going to be looking to get rid of Gary Payton II because of injury concerns and stuff. But I understand why the Warriors would do this. I don't understand why the Bulls would do this. So that trade to me is pretty bad. Next is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the trade is Jared Allen to the New Orleans Pelicans for Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance Jr., and the number 21 overall pick. It's not a terrible trade, but it's not great. This is a very lukewarm trade. I think Jared Allen has the ability to be a fucking monster if he was put on the right team. Jared Allen, like, if Jared Allen played for a team like the Washington Wizards, right, and they didn't have Kyle Kuzma or Jordan Poole there, and they just had a facilitating setup point guard, Jared Allen would put up 20-20s if he was like the number 1 option on any team. He's a guy that I think you can definitely do better than Dyson Daniels. I think you can definitely do better than Larry Nance. The number 21 overall pick is okay, but it's not great. I think for a talent like Jared Allen, though, I definitely think the Cavaliers can do better. You know, like, even the Chicago Bulls, man. Like, if Jared Allen went to the Chicago Bulls, right, and let's just say they didn't have Nikola Vucevic, and they decided they wanted to do this rebuild shit, right, or trade Jared Allen for Nikola Vucevic because the Cavaliers, you know, Evan Mobley would benefit a lot from having a stretch big on his team and not another guy just crowding up the paint for him. Even if you did that trade, I think Jared Allen would thrive a whole hell of a lot more in a place like Chicago than with the Pelicans, especially because you're going to put him next to Zion Williamson, who I can't say he can't shoot threes, but doesn't shoot them consistently. I don't know. Jared Allen, I just think, is a guy that if he had his own team would be very, very good. And we saw flashes of it when he was in Brooklyn. He went to Cleveland. He got a lot of opportunity this year with I think Darius Garland being out, and I think even Evan Mobley was injured at a part in the season, and he went off. Like, he went on like a 5-10 game stretch where he was just a double machine with blocks, dunking, scoring 20 points. He was averaging like 20 a game through that stretch. So yeah, Jared Allen's a guy that I think you could get a lot better service, or like a better package for. Like, even Miles Turner for Jared Allen straight up would not be a bad trade for the Cavaliers, especially if they need like I said, they need a stretch big to open shit up for Evan Mobley down low, and even that trade straight up I think would be beneficial to both teams in their own ways. So yeah, I just don't like Jared Allen going to the Pelicans. The Pelicans are a team that need to put good role players there, not guys that are capable of, you know, taking up shot attempts, right? And that's why I don't like any of the Pelicans trades. It seems like they're just taking one star player and swapping it for another and saying like, okay, let's see if this works, when the biggest issue on their team is that they have too many mouths to feed. They have a bunch of Chiefs and no Indians, so to speak, and the Pelicans need some Indians, you know, so that's where I'm at with that. I don't really like that trade. I think the Cavaliers could do a whole hell of a lot better. Next is the Dallas Mavericks. This trade's actually not bad. Josh Green to the Brooklyn Nets for Dorian Finney-Smith. Josh Green, young player, something that the Nets are looking for. He's a good player, and Dorian Finney-Smith going back to Dallas would be very beneficial for them because they'd get a stretch, a legitimate 3-and-D guy who can stretch the floor and can play defense. But, however, I don't think this is a trade that's going to happen. For whatever reason, the Brooklyn Nets are very keen on getting 2 first-round picks for Dorian Finney-Smith. Maybe they do it for Josh Green, but I think if you're the Mavs, you might have to, like, the Brooklyn Nets are going to want to rip your eyes out to get Dorian Finney-Smith back. You're probably going to be paying a hefty price for that unless his contract is expiring or whatever. So, yeah, there's that. Next is the Denver Nuggets. This trade I don't fucking understand at all. I don't understand all the Michael Porter Jr. to Toronto shit and the Andrew Wiggins to, like, for whatever reason everybody wants to send their shitty contracts to Toronto. I don't know why, but this is the Denver Nuggets, and the trade is Michael Porter Jr. to the Toronto Raptors for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, pick number 31, and a 2026 first-round pick, top 4 protected. Now, I will say this. The first thing is, I don't think there's any way that the Toronto Raptors do this trade because they have RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes already. They do not want to add Michael Porter Jr., another max contract guy to their roster that they're locked into for the next 3 or 4 years, just to, you know, say they have a basketball team. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've got 2 guys on their roster. Like, Scotty Barnes is going to be a max contract player. RJ Barrett already got a max contract extension, and now you're trying to tell me that the Toronto Raptors would love to take on another forward that is also locked into, like, I think Michael Porter Jr. got $200 million. Like, Michael Porter Jr.'s contract is fucking astronomical. And I understand the Toronto Raptors are in a rebuild state at this point, but my thing is, right, why in the world would you want to add Michael Porter Jr.? Like, if you're the Toronto Raptors in this situation, you're looking for young guys you can develop, okay? Not fucking Michael Porter Jr., who has, you know, he's okay, but he's not great. You know what I'm saying? He's never been I like Michael Porter Jr.'s contract is pretty bad for what he is, if I'm being honest with you. And I don't think the Raptors have any interest in taking on that contract. And on top of it, Bruce Brown is a guy that I get it. You know, he's bounced around a lot now. The Raptors are going to be wanting to trade Bruce Brown on draft night. That's the rumor right now, is that the Raptors would like to trade Bruce Brown during the NBA draft to maybe move up in the draft. But Bruce Brown is a guy that I just think someone will trade for him, but I just don't think this trade specifically with Denver makes any sense. And, you know, if you're the Toronto Raptors and you're looking at the Denver Nuggets roster, you want young guys, you know, and the Denver Nuggets don't really have a whole bunch of them that really jump off the page. I mean, let's see, Denver, let's look at the Denver Nuggets. What do they got? If you're looking to trade Michael Porter Jr. to them, you're probably asking for, well, shit, there's nobody really crazy on, a lot of people have expiring contracts, but I don't know, Julian Strother. I mean, like, who? My question is, like, why does this trade exist if you know that the Raptors aren't going to be interested in any player on this team, including Michael Porter Jr.? That's why I don't get it. So, yeah, this trade's bad. I don't like this trade. I think this trade is shit. The Detroit Pistons the trade is Isaiah Stewart, Quentin Grimes, and the number 5 pick to the Washington Wizards for Kyle Kuzma. If I'm Washington, great trade. If I'm the Detroit Pistons, bad trade. And the reason I say that is because even though Kyle Kuzma is very good, that's a lot to give up for Kyle Kuzma. And on top of it, I think Cade Cunningham has way more upside than Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma would probably be relegated to a 3-and-D role with the Detroit Pistons, and I simply don't think that's who he is. I think he likes to put the ball on the floor. I mean, it would be nice to have a duo of Kyle Kuzma and Cade Cunningham, but you've also got Jalen Duren over there. You've got Jaden Ivey over there. You know, like Isaiah Stewart's a good player. Quentin Grimes is a good player, and the number 5 pick is fucking great if you're the Washington Wizards. But I don't know. It just if you're the Washington Wizards, this is a home run. If you're the Detroit Pistons, you're giving up depth for another mouth to feed in your 5-man rotation in the starting lineup. So I don't know. It's an okay trade. It's not great. It's better than most of the trades I've seen, but still feels like Detroit would be giving up a lot to get Kyle Kuzma. You know, for a guy that's just going to take the ball out of the hands of your future star player. Next is the Golden State Warriors, another fucking Toronto Raptors trade that simply doesn't make sense. Yeah, let's trade Andrew Wiggins to the Toronto Raptors for Kelly Olynyk and Jalen McDaniels. Yes, because that's exactly what the Toronto Raptors want to do. Add another wing to their roster of wings that they already have between Scotty Barnes and R.J. Barrett, who R.J. Barrett looked very promising once he went to the Raptors. Nobody's gonna want Andrew Wiggins unless they're desperate. I hate to say it to you, but Andrew Wiggins' contract sucks so much dick that it's like somebody has to be extremely fucking desperate if they trade for Andrew Wiggins. That's just where I'm at. Like a team that like is just looking to maybe get rid of like Zach LaVine or something like that, then yeah, maybe you trade Andrew Wiggins to the Bulls because he's sucked and the Bulls are looking to come off of Zach LaVine. And if you're the Warriors, you're throwing a couple draft picks to get him next to Stephen Curry. Considering they're losing Klay Thompson, it seems. So, yeah, this trade, I think this trade sucks. I'm going to call it what it is. I think it sucks. The Houston Rockets, their trade is Dylan Brooks, Tari Eason, and the number 3 pick to the Portland Trailblazers for Jeremy Grant and the number 14 pick. This is not a terrible trade, but I don't think it really moves the needle a whole lot for either team. If you're the Rockets, I think you get significantly worse on defense. And also, like, the number 3 overall pick and Jeremy Grant's contract sucks too. Just going to throw that out there. You know, I understand that the Houston Rockets could use another guy that's really good off the ball and can create some offense, but at the same time, if you would just play some of your young players like Tari Eason that you're trading in this trade, if they would just play guys like Tari Eason and Cam Whitmore more often, this trade wouldn't even exist. So that's why I don't understand this trade either. Like, Jeremy Grant has a terrible contract. The Houston Rockets, yeah, they made a playoff run, or I think, no, didn't they were, I think they were a play-in team, but either way, this is a borderline playoff team, right? If you're the Houston Rockets, you're a borderline playoff team. Getting rid of Tari Eason and Dylan Brooks and the number 3 overall pick for Jeremy Grant and the 14th overall pick, I think makes your team worse. This is a team that literally all they have to do is play Cam Whitmore and Tari Eason more, and you'll get the guy you're looking for in Jeremy Grant. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever you think you're getting in Jeremy Grant, if you would just play Tari Eason and Cam Whitmore more often, you would probably get that without having to give up anybody. So that's why I don't really understand this trade. I get this is like maybe an urgency move, but I honestly think Houston should just leave their roster alone and let the guys grow. That's just where I'm at with that team. I think if they let their guys develop, their team could be very, very good. Number 12, the Indiana Pacers. This trade is comical, okay? The trade is Jarris Walker and Isaiah Jackson to the Chicago Bulls for Alex Caruso. Okay, here's the deal. The Pacers already have TJ McConnell, so we don't really need Alex Caruso because TJ McConnell is good enough. He's the best bench point guard in the NBA. And then you want to give up, then you think that the Pacers are going to give up the guy they just drafted in Isaiah Jackson, give up all their front court depth, which they're already lacking at, for another guard. This doesn't make sense. This trade doesn't make sense. As a Pacers fan, okay, this trade simply does not make sense for the Indiana Pacers under any circumstance. I understand Alex Caruso is a good lockdown defender. He's a great player. He's stroking the three-point shot at a career high this year. But here's the thing. He's older than TJ McConnell as well. I do not see the Pacers giving up Jarris Walker and Isaiah Jackson for Alex Caruso. I don't see them giving up front court depth that they desperately need to hold on to and try to develop for a guy they don't really need. This trade sucks. I'm just going to say it's terrible. Next is the Los Angeles Clippers. The trade is Bones Highland to the Charlotte Hornets for Seth Curry and the number 42 overall pick. I could see this happening, mostly because the Clippers seem to be in a rebuild mode. I know it doesn't seem like it yet, but if Paul George doesn't go back to the Clippers, which I think is very, very likely, this is the Los Angeles Clippers are a team that I think is going to get worse this offseason instead of better. And Bones Highland is a guy that if he went to the Hornets, I think he'd get more opportunity. He's a guy that didn't get a lot of opportunity with the Clippers simply because he's not a great defender. But it would give Bones Highland a place to grow. Seth Curry going to the Clippers. Okay, you add a three-point shooter to the Clippers. They do need a shooter. You give them a number 42 overall pick. This trade's not too bad. I actually like this trade. Is it a trade that really moves the needle for either team? No, but it kind of makes sense from both standpoints depending on what happens this offseason. It'd be nice to have a guy behind LaMelo Ball if he's injured again. LaMelo Ball seems to be very injury prone. So having Bones Highland there, and he had some really, really big games when he played for the Denver Nuggets. I like Bones Highland, and I'd like to see him play for the Charlotte Hornets because I think he would get a lot more opportunity. So this is a trade that I actually think is pretty good. I actually like this trade a lot. Mostly for the Hornets, and for the Clippers, you get a three-point shooter that you desperately need. So, even though Bones Highland is a three-point shooter, if you just fucking play him, you'd find that out. But, yeah, that's where I'm at on that. Next is the Los Angeles Lakers. This trade is fucking bonkers and is not going to happen. But the Los Angeles Lakers trade Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, Jalen Hood-Schifino, a 2029 first-round pick, and a 2031 first-round pick to the Miami Heat for Jimmy Butler and Thomas Bryant. What have we learned about all-star trios in the past couple years in the NBA? I'm going to tell you what we've learned. That they don't fucking work. For whatever reason, every trio that has been tried in the past 5 years or so has not worked. We saw it with Brooklyn, right? With Harden, KD, and Kyrie. That didn't work. Okay, we're seeing it right now with the Phoenix Suns with Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I understand that they still have LeBron James, but LeBron James, at 39 years old, isn't running point guard for you anymore. Sorry. I mean, don't get me wrong, LeBron has still got it. He's still got a little gas left in the tank, but it's not enough to be making him take the ball out every fucking possession. And if you make this trade as the Lakers, that's what's going to happen. I mean, first of all, the Lakers are also a team that is trying to get younger, with LeBron being 39 years old, probably playing at max another 2 years left in the NBA. Why would you give up Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, and Jalen Hood-Schifino for a 34-year-old Jimmy Butler and Thomas Bryant? Okay, I can see into the future maybe wanting to put Jimmy Butler next to Anthony Davis, and Thomas Bryant is a good center when he actually plays and isn't injured, but if you're the Lakers, you're giving up a lot for a 34-year-old Jimmy Butler, when I think really what they should do is just keep their roster together and try to find a decent point guard in the offseason that'll come there and facilitate and be a better defender, make better choices, be a better facilitator. Emmanuel Quickley is a free agent this year. It would make more sense for the Lakers to go out and try to get Emmanuel Quickley or somebody like that rather than try to trade for Jimmy Butler. Sorry, this is a pie in the sky trade that I simply you're giving up a whole hell of a lot for a 34-year-old Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler is still a great player, but you're mortgaging your future to be in salary cap space hell once again, when you really, you could have some more flexibility going into next offseason potentially, rather than just give up whatever future you have for a guy that's, I get that he's good, perennial all-star, but you're giving up all your depth, and the Lakers are already struggling. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Lakers already struggle to make the playoffs with the unit they got now. Trading away all that depth and future first-round picks for Jimmy Butler, like, to me, just doesn't seem like a smart idea. If I'm the Lakers, I'm going out and looking for maybe a Malcolm Brogdon, right? Like, Malcolm Brogdon would be a good player for the Lakers to target, not Jimmy Butler. I think Malcolm Brogdon would be nice. Any point guard that can do a little bit of everything, facilitate, play a little defense, get to the basket every once in a while. That's what I like. Fuck Jimmy Butler and Thomas Bryant. This trade sucks. I'm just going to call it what it is. This trade sucks. Next is the Memphis Grizzlies. The trades Brandon Clark, John Conchar, Zaire Williams, and the number 39 overall pick to the Utah Jazz for John Collins. I guess if you're the Grizzlies and you want to be in salary cap space hell, then yeah, you make this trade. But John Collins, I think, is a very overrated player. I honestly think trading up Brandon Clark and Zaire Williams is too much for John Collins. I'm just gonna call do people not, I don't think this Bleacher Report writer understands that the Utah Jazz acquired John Collins for Rudy Gay and a second-round pick. So, I don't understand why, if that's the case, if that's what John Collins' value truly is, then the Memphis Grizzlies are overpaying for John Collins. That's where I'm at. Brandon Clark is very good. John Conchar is John Conchar, whatever. Zaire Williams showed that he could be a decent player, and the number 39 pick, it's an overpay for John Collins. And honestly, the Memphis Grizzlies do not need to overpay for John Collins. If John Morant comes back and plays a full year without flashing guns on Instagram or getting fucking injured, they're gonna be a playoff team again this upcoming year. So this trade simply doesn't make sense to me. The Memphis Grizzlies at this point are giving up some valuable depth to get a guy that I don't think is going to move the needle a whole hell of a lot for them. This trade sucks. I'm going to call it what it is. This trade kind of sucks. Next is the Miami Heat. This is a trade that's kind of laughable, actually. It's so bad. The trade is Duncan Robinson and the number 15 overall pick to the San Antonio Spurs for Keldon Johnson. I'm just going to tell you right now, the San Antonio Spurs are going to pick up the phone and fucking laugh at you. Keldon Johnson played amazing for the Spurs this past year. Duncan Robinson, the number 15 overall pick to the Spurs, is not enticing. I understand Keldon Johnson might be a guy that they're speculating a move on for maybe a bigger name, maybe a Trae Young or something like that if they really want to take that route. But if you think the Spurs are giving you Keldon Johnson for Duncan Robinson and the last pick in the lottery, I think you're smoking something hard. This is not going to happen. Keldon Johnson is significantly better than Duncan Robinson, and that number 15 overall pick doesn't mean shit. Sorry. This was a nice try. Congratulations. You tried. But this is not a trade that's going to happen. If I'm the San Antonio Spurs, I laugh you off the phone over that. Next is the Milwaukee Bucks. This is a bad trade as well. But the trade is Bobby Portis and Andre Jackson Jr. to the Golden State Warriors for Gary Payton II, Moses Moody, and the number 52 overall pick and a 2026 second-round pick. The thing is, if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, why would I give up Bobby Portis and Andre Jackson Jr. for Moses Moody, Gary Payton II, and 2 second-round picks? Bobby Portis was one of the best players on their team this past year, a guy who showed up really big for them in the playoffs. So I just don't understand why they would want Gary Payton II and Moses Moody for the and 2 second-round picks for Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis is way better than both of those guys, and Bobby Portis is more durable than those guys, or at least more durable than Gary Payton II at the very least. And the 2 second-round picks are just fucking throwaways, essentially, unless you somehow hit on that second-round pick and find Nikola Jokic by some miracle stroke. This is a bad trade. I don't think Milwaukee would ever do this. Bobby Portis means too much of that. Bobby Portis is the heart and soul of that Milwaukee Bucks team, and I just simply don't see this. The Golden State Warriors would be better off going after a guy like Robert Williams than Bobby Portis. That is way more likely to happen than Bobby Portis. That's all I'm saying. The Milwaukee Bucks would never hear the end of it from their fan base if they traded Bobby Portis for Moses Moody and Gary Payton II. That's all. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to leave it there. Next is the Minnesota Timberwolves. The trade is Naz Reid to the New Orleans Pelicans for Dyson Daniels and Jordan. These are just getting laughable at this point. Naz Reid to the New Orleans Pelicans for Dyson Daniels and Jordan Hawkins. Look, I understand the Wolves need some point guard play and they could use some more three-point shooting, but Dyson Daniels has not been the player we thought he would be. Is it on the way? Yeah, maybe. And Jordan Hawkins is a damn good three-point shooter, but you are fucking high if you think the Wolves are trading the sixth man of the year for Dyson Daniels and Jordan Hawkins. Sorry. I understand where they're coming from with this trade, but at the same time, it's Naz Reid is a stretch big. You know what I'm saying? Naz Reid can step out and shoot the three. He can get to the basket. He can put the ball on the floor a little bit. I do not see the Timberwolves trading Naz Reid after the season he just had, and especially after the extension they just gave him. I think this trade would set the Wolves back more than it would set them forward. That's just my opinion. 3-point, and like I said earlier in the video, point guard play and 3-point shooting you can get in the draft every year or in free agency every year. So, you know, this whole fucking trade Dyson Daniels to some bullshit team for their best player or one of their better players is simply not working. Sorry, it's not happening. This is a trade that will not happen under any circumstance with how good Naz Reid has played. Next is the New Orleans Pelicans. The trade is Brandon Ingram to the Indiana Pacers for Miles Turner, TJ McConnell, and the number 36 pick. Well, I understand what this trade's trying to accomplish, but as a Pacers fan, respectfully, fuck no. Okay? Fuck no. And the reason I say that is because while Miles Turner and TJ McConnell are on expiring deals, if the Pacers did this trade, there would be no defense in the front court. The Pacers' defense is already laughable. Okay? If you get rid of TJ McConnell and Miles Turner, who are arguably two of the best defenders on this team at their respective positions outside of Aaron Nesmith and whatever Jarris Walker is going to put on the floor next year, this is not a trade that the Pacers are going to do. TJ McConnell's the best bench point guard in the NBA. Miles Turner has... If the Pacers don't bring back Miles Turner, they're not getting Pascal Siakam. So that's another thing, because Pascal Siakam wanted to go to Indiana specifically to play with Miles Turner. So, yeah, this Brandon Ingram trade's kind of laughable. I get it. Like, I understand having a trio of Siakam, Halliburton, and Brandon Ingram, but the Pacers I don't think are going to make a whole lot of moves this offseason. Even though I'd like to see them try to improve, Brandon Ingram is just not the answer. Not for this package anyway. And I also think Ben Mathurin in season 3 could have a breakout year if the Pacers don't make any moves. If the Pacers are trading for anybody at that small forward spot, it's got to be Jimmy Butler, Paul George, or OG Anunoby, not Brandon Ingram. Sorry. Those are the guys I'll take over. Or DeMar DeRozan. Like, those are the 4 guys I would take over Ben Mathurin starting next year. And even that, it's like, you know, I would like to see what Ben Mathurin can do. And I just think this is a terrible trade for the Pacers. I just think this is a trade that would ruin the Pacers more than it would help them out. And it would be very, very good for the New Orleans Pelicans because it would give them their bench point guard that they need, or their backup point guard that they need, a facilitating point guard that can play a little defense, and give you some spark off the bench or in the starting lineup. And Miles Turner is the stretch big they need to give Zion Williamson his room under the basket. So I understand this from a Pelican standpoint. This is a great trade for the Pelicans and a terrible trade for the Pacers. I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, this trade fucking sucks too. So, next is the New York Knicks. The trade is Mitchell Robinson to the Golden State Warriors for Gary Payton II, Moses Moody, and a 2026 first-round pick, top 5 protected. This is an okay trade. It's not great. Mitchell Robinson is a great rebounder, great offensive rebounder. But I think this is like, you really got to see what Isaiah Hartenstein's going to do in free agency first before you go trading Mitchell Robinson. But Mitchell Robinson has been in trade talks for the past couple of years. Gary Payton II and Moses Moody and a 2026 first-round pick is not the end of the world, but I do think that they can do a lot better than Gary Payton II and Moses Moody and a 2026 first-round pick. I think the pick is nice, but the thing is, New York has picks already. They have too many first-round picks, actually, and you'd be giving them Gary Payton II and Moses Moody, who are 2 guys that I don't really think the Knicks need. I think they can do better for Mitchell Robinson, and that's just my opinion on it. I think this trade is just, I don't know. It's not a trade that I could see the Knicks doing. That's all. Like, I just don't think that's something that the Knicks are going to do. Oklahoma City Thunder. They trade Josh Giddey and the number 12 pick to the Portland Trailblazers for Anthony Simons. Well, while I understand why this trade exists, because Josh Giddey's a facilitator, decent defender, he's an okay scorer. You know, his 3-point shot is ugly as shit, but, you know, it goes in from time to time. Anthony Simons is just a guy that I think they can get something better than Josh Giddey for. Josh Giddey was not a very big factor for the Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs. Anthony Simons is a guy, like, I would like to see Anthony Simons maybe go play for a team like the Chicago Bulls, or, you know, a team that could use a spark off the bench as a guy that can come in and, like, really, really take shit over. Anthony Simons would be a nice guy for the Clippers if they get rid of Paul George. Or can't bring back Paul George. Anthony Simons would be a nice guy, I think, for who else? Who else is another team that could use him? The Sacramento Kings. He would be a nice guy off the bench. There's just a lot of other teams I think Anthony Simons would be nice on. He would be nice on Oklahoma City. It just, I think you'd have to come up with something different other than Josh Giddey. Maybe Lou Dort, I could see happening. But I don't think for Josh Giddey it's going to happen. So that's the end of that trade. The Orlando Magic trade Cole Anthony, Mo Wagner, Joe Ingles, and the number 18 overall pick to the Denver Nuggets for Michael Porter Jr. It's wishful thinking, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know. The Orlando Magic feel like an island of misfit toys. You know, like, they have a bunch of, like, average to decent players. They don't have anybody super great outside of Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero and Jalen Suggs. Adding Michael Porter Jr. to that kind of just puts him in the same spot that he is in Denver, where he's going to have to defer to probably Jalen Suggs or Franz Wagner, and I mean, he's going to have to definitely defer to Paolo Banchero. Yeah, it would maybe give you a future number 2 option next to Paolo Banchero, but for, like, Michael Porter Jr. is just making too much money. If Michael Porter Jr. is going to go to any team, it should be a rebuilding team that needs a guy that they can build around. And that's what I think Michael Porter Jr. could be good for. You know, a team that comes to my mind immediately is Charlotte. You know, the Charlotte Hornets. If you're not going to bring back Miles Bridges and you're looking to trade for somebody, maybe you put Michael Porter Jr. next to LaMelo Ball. You know, because it doesn't seem like they're bringing back Miles Bridges. They didn't agree to an extension with him, so I think they're kind of going to let him walk. Or maybe they're just gauging to see what his free agency value is. Another team that could make a move on Michael Porter Jr. is the Portland Trailblazers. The Portland Trailblazers are a team that's like, they're also a team with like an island of misfit toys, where if you're the Denver Nuggets, you know, sending Michael Porter Jr. to the Portland Trailblazers for a package of Robert Williams, maybe you get a Matisse Thybulle, or somebody like that, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you could pull off Jeremy Grant again and bring him back. I don't know. I think Jeremy Grant is maybe a better defender or a more willing passer than Michael Porter Jr. Granted, you don't get any younger. You'd be getting older. But it just, I feel like there's way better trades than this. I think Michael Porter Jr. to the Orlando Magic is just, I don't know, somebody just trying to make up a trade for the Orlando Magic. Next is the Philadelphia 76ers, trading the number 16 overall pick to the Golden State Warriors for Moses Moody. This is a good trade. I like this trade, but it really depends on where the 76ers value their salary cap space. You know, if they're rumored to be making a huge run at Paul George this summer, and if that's the case, then I think that number 16 overall pick is more valuable to them than Moses Moody, because they're going to have to extend Moses Moody at some point. Granted, if you sign Paul George, you're going to be in salary cap space hell anyway, but that number 16 overall pick could maybe be a little more useful for your bench depth, where, you know, you could get a decent bench player and maybe not have to pay an astronomical amount of money for it. You know, that's the purpose of the NBA draft, is to add bench depth without having to pay an ass ton of money for it. Whereas if you have Moses Moody, he's a guy that's going to be eligible for a contract extension in a year or two, and it's like, you know, you're going to have to go into more salary cap space hell just to bring him back. I just think that the Sixers can are going to value their draft picks a lot more than Moses Moody. So it's a good trade. It's not bad. I think Moses Moody would be a great fit for the 76ers, especially if they're not bringing back Buddy Hield. But, you know, at the same time, it's like, you know, do you want to put something good around that trio, or do you want your team to just be that trio and that's it? That's the question we got to be asking ourselves. But on paper, I like the trade. It's not a bad trade. It just depends on what the 76ers mood is. So next is the Phoenix Suns. They trade Damian Lee in the number 22 overall pick to the Detroit Pistons for Marcus Sasser. If I'm the Pistons, I'm keeping Marcus Sasser. That's the end of this trade. Damian Lee is not a guy that I really care about, nor do I give a fuck about the number 22 overall pick if I'm the Detroit Pistons. I've got the guys that I want to build around. Marcus Sasser is a guy who I think can shoot the three very, very good. I think he's going to be a great bench player for the Detroit Pistons. So yeah, if I'm the Pistons, Marcus Sasser is a guy I'm keeping around for a little while. Portland Trail Blazers trade Malcolm Brogdon to the Orlando Magic for Jet Howard, Joe Ingles, and the number 18 overall pick. It's okay. It's not a great trade. Malcolm Brogdon to the Orlando Magic is a little questionable considering they're a young team. Adding Malcolm Brogdon there and getting rid of Jet Howard, who's a guy that I think has the ability to be fucking amazing, and Joe Ingles and the number 18 overall pick. It just feels like the Orlando Magic are giving up a lot to get a guy that's very injury prone, a guy that has bounced around the league a lot. He's more of a scoring point guard than he is a facilitator. He's not a good defender, which kind of goes against everything the Orlando Magic stood for this year as being a good defensive team, being a young team. It's just Malcolm Brogdon is just a good vet. You know what I'm saying? So he'd be a nice vet for Scoot Henderson, I will say that, but you can find a vet point guard out in free agency that will cost you less than Malcolm Brogdon, and you wouldn't have to give up Jet Howard. I don't like the idea of them giving up Jet Howard for Malcolm Brogdon. Jet Howard, I think, if he's given opportunity, could be very, very good. So I don't like this trade. I think Malcolm Brogdon could go to another team. And if you're going to trade Malcolm Brogdon, trade him to a fucking contender. You know what I'm saying? Trade him to a contender or a better team and get something decent. You know what I'm saying? Get something back that's a little more meaningful than Jet Howard, who hasn't proven anything yet. I think Jet Howard's going to be very good, but you never know. I think if I'm Portland, I want something a little more concrete when it comes to young players for Malcolm Brogdon. So that's my opinion on that. Next is the Sacramento Kings. Oh, here we go. Another Jimmy Butler trade. Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, Davion Mitchell, the number 13 pick in the draft, first-round pick in 2020, and a first-round pick in 2030 to the Miami Heat for Jimmy Butler. Helps you on defense, but offensively, kind of the same as Harrison Barnes. Getting rid of Kevin Huerter sucks. Davion Mitchell's a decent backup point guard who actually plays defense. And 3 first-round picks for Jimmy Butler just seems like a lot for a guy who's 34. Jimmy Butler's good, man, but some of these trades that I've seen for him are fucking ridiculous. This is just a ridiculous trade. I don't think Sacramento's going to do this. I get that Sacramento would like to maybe make some improvements. They've been trying to trade Harrison Barnes for a while, and I get that if you can turn him into Jimmy Butler, that's great, but you're giving up a lot of your future assets for Jimmy Butler. It's not a bad trade, but it's not a great trade. It's a trade that I look at and I'm just giving up a whole hell of a lot to get Jimmy Butler. Every one of these trades that includes Jimmy Butler is just ridiculous, and I get it. Adding Jimmy Butler to your team helps a lot, but I don't know. I feel like when you give up this much to get one guy back in return, it usually doesn't pan out the way you expect. So, not a terrible trade, but I don't know. I don't really know how well this would work for the Miami Heat as well. Harrison Barnes is good, but he's not Jimmy Butler, so. Next is the San Antonio Spurs. This trade is fucking ridiculous. This trade, I don't understand this trade for the life of me. So the trade is Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham, Zach Collins, Blake Wesley, the number 4 pick, the number 8 pick, a 2025 first round pick, and a 2027 first round pick as well for Devin Booker. Okay, first of all, I understand that the Spurs, this is a fun trade. I don't want to shit on it too much, but you're giving up a fucking lot to get Devin Booker. That's a lot of shit to give up. Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham, and Blake Wesley specifically, and you're including Zach Collins in this, plus 4 first-round picks for Devin Booker. Don't get me wrong, Devin Booker's the best shooting guard in the NBA, or at least he's in the conversation for it, but he's also, I think he's 26. Victor Wembanyama is relatively young. I just don't think, this would be the, I don't know. This is the Mikal Bridges trade, He plays for the Brooklyn Nets, but he doesn't fit their timetable. And that's the same thing with Devin Booker here. You can add Devin Booker to this team, but does it make you a better team? No, I actually think it makes you worse. This is a team that in the Phoenix Suns that, yes, they need a lot of depth. It's a great trade for the Phoenix Suns. It's a terrible trade for I think the San Antonio Spurs. And the reason I say it is because Malachi Branham has started showing promise. Keldon Johnson was a monster this year. Zach Collins is solid. Blake Wesley is more of a point guard than a shooting guard in my opinion, but that's debatable. And you're giving up 4 first-round picks. Like, I understand you don't need the picks very much now that you got Wemby, but that's a lot of shit to give up for one player. And while I understand Phoenix needs depth, Devin Booker does not fit the timetable for the San Antonio Spurs. I think the Spurs, if they're going to trade for anybody, should go for somebody that's even younger. If they'll give it to them, like for example, the Suns could maybe go out and sign Miles Bridges this offseason, and that would give them a whole hell of a lot to play for. I understand Miles Bridges doesn't have the greatest off-court reputation in the world, but if I'm the Spurs in this situation, I'm looking at signing Miles Bridges in free agency way before I'm looking to trade for Devin Booker. Fun trade, don't get me wrong, fun trade, but it's a lot to give up for Devin Booker. Next is the Toronto Raptors trading Bruce Brown to the Golden State Warriors for Andrew Wiggins straight up. Hell no. Hell no. Just anything, Andrew, any of these wings going to the Raptors for Bruce Brown or whatever, any Michael Porter Jr., Andrew Wiggins bullshit to Toronto is just a no for me. I'm sorry. I don't understand why the Raptors would even do that. Especially when you can trade Bruce Brown and probably get a decent young center or a decent young point guard or from one of these teams that is a contender for Bruce Brown. Because that's where Bruce Brown belongs, on a contender. And I understand that the Golden State Warriors could maybe get better fortune on defense with Bruce Brown. But like, for example, trade Bruce Brown to maybe the Lakers and get yourself, maybe an Austin Reeves or somebody like that, or a Rui Hachimura, or, just somebody who's a little bit younger that you could grow with. I don't like Andrew Wiggins being traded for the, everyone's looking at Toronto to be a salary cap dump spot, and I just don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to re-sign Emmanuel quickly, or attempt to, and I don't see them taking on big contracts. I don't think they're a team that doesn't look to rebuild. Just saying, and trading Andrew Wiggins to the Raptors for Bruce Brown would essentially put them in a rebuild mode. Even though they kind of are already in it, it would just make the rebuild more painful. Next is the Utah Jazz trading John Collins and the number 29 pick and the number 32 overall pick to the Miami Heat for Duncan Robinson and Caleb Martin. This isn't too bad of a trade. Like, if this was the John Collins trade, I wouldn't be too mad at this. Duncan Robinson is Duncan Robinson. Caleb Martin is a really good player, but, this is an equal trade. This is a trade I look at and I'm like, okay, like, this isn't the end of the world. John Collins isn't worth a whole hell of a lot, but he could help the Miami Heat quite a bit. And then if you look at the Utah Jazz, Duncan Robinson's an old player, but maybe you get off that John Collins contract and you bring in Caleb Martin, who's a decent player who will probably go someplace else. And if you are the Utah Jazz, you're only doing this trade really to get John Collins off your roster and to get yourself the 2 draft picks. Other than that, the trade's okay. It's not great. I actually almost like this better for the Heat than I do the Utah Jazz. And lastly, the Washington Wizards trade Kyle Kuzma and the number 26 overall pick to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Jared Allen. I kind of like that. I'm not going to lie, this is a trade I kind of like. Kyle Kuzma going to the Cavs and the number 26 overall pick for Jared Allen is not too bad. I would rather see Jordan Poole in there. That's just my opinion, but because Kyle Kuzma did state he wants to stay in Washington. But for Jared Allen, if the Cavaliers are selling, this isn't a bad trade. This is actually a decent trade. This is a trade I actually agree with. I like that one. But that's it. That's it for me. That's the end of it. That's all 30 trades for all 30 NBA teams. Most of them kind of suck, but there's a couple of them that are pretty good. Every Pacers trade sucked, but this is a trade that could maybe, some of these trades could really help some of these teams. Not a lot of them, obviously, but there's some even trades here, but a lot of these trades just feel like one team trying to get over on the other, and that's not the way the association works. It's not, you know, NBA 2K where you just press propose trade and you can force the trade to go through. The National Business Association doesn't work that way. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.